Welcome to the Parker Daniels Show, where amazing stories are shared.
And be hopeful, hopeful, and he'll make a way. I know it ain't easy, but that's okay.
Hello out there in YouTube land and all of the lands across the land. Welcome to the Parker Daniels Show. Today we have a very special guest coming all the way from Chicago, Illinois. So I'm going to give her a moment to give a brief introduction about herself, and we're going to get this thing started. So let's welcome our guest. What's your name?
My name is Hilda Sandifer.
Hi, Hilda. It's wonderful for you to be on the show today. So, Hilda, can you tell us a little bit on how you lost your sight and some of the things and struggles that you had when you first started noticing that you were losing your sight?
Okay, I was teaching. This is 2003. Because prior to that, I could see perfectly fine. I was driving, and then I started noticing my vision was getting blurry. So when I finally went in to have my eyes examined, I noticed the doctor told me that I had no vision in my left eye. I had lost the vision in my left eye.
Okay.
I still had peripheral. Everything was fine in my right eye. I could still drive, but then things started to get kind of blurry and I couldn't tell whether or not I was in between the lines when I was driving. And what really made me stop driving, I almost hit somebody.
Oh my goodness.
That really scared me to death.
Yes.
So I took the car back to the leasing lot and gave them the keys and was trying to figure out how was I going to get to work, and I couldn't see.
Correct.
But early before the kids arrived, and a good friend of mine told me about paratransit. I didn't know anything what paratransit was, how it worked or anything. That they would come pick me up, take me to work, and then bring me back home. I couldn't believe that. So I went and she sent me the application. I signed up for it. And it took them quite a while to let me know that I was eligible to get the service. Okay. And so I had moved in with my sister. And luckily, the school where she was working was like maybe 2 blocks from my school. So every morning we would leave together and she would drop me off at work. And then she would come back and get me. And then we would go home. And then I applied for the service. And I started the service in January of 2003.
Okay.
And so I really enjoyed being driven to work. And I didn't have to worry about a car anymore and gas. And it was really great. I didn't have any problems with it. Some people miss driving. I don't miss driving. Not at all.
Now, when we were talking before we started the show, you were telling me that you started off teaching at a Catholic school. Yes. And then you moved over to a public. You want to tell us a little bit about that and what made you finally say, I think it's time for me to end this?
The reason I started teaching in the Catholic school when I was in my last semester of college, you have to do your student teaching. And the class before us, they were all in public school. And I think that was the year public schools went on strike. So all of the student teachers had to be reassigned into Catholic schools to finish their student teaching. So when it was time for my group to graduate, they did the same thing. They just immediately went on and put us in Catholic schools. So when I started to look for a job, that's where I was hired. The first one was out on 122nd and Parnell here in Chicago. Nice little Catholic school in a residential neighborhood. And I stayed there with them until we closed our doors in 1990. And we consolidated with another Catholic school further down on 117th in the city of Chicago. Okay. And I was there until June of 99.
Okay.
And then I changed over and went to the Chicago Public Schools.
Okay. As a teacher, there's so many things that you have to do. There's so many background things, as we talked about, that people don't see. So, can you explain to us some of the things that you encountered while doing that, as well as some of the things that you encountered when you started losing your sight, and how you basically made your own accommodations?
Well, being in a classroom, um, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to teach because I couldn't see my students clearly. I could see them if they were right in front of me, but if they were across the room, then I couldn't detect who I was talking to. So I had to train my ears to pick up different dialects, the way they spoke, and I could see some, and I could determine who I was talking to. So what I would do, I would change my classroom around every 2 weeks. And the design that I used, most of the children that I knew I could trust and not have them closer to me, I put them on the outside of my design. They were
Okay.
like square. My inner square were my talkers. The
Okay.
ones that would not be quiet for no reason. They wanted to cut up. So I kept them closer to me. And I always had an extra desk where I could sit with them. So I would always be in the center of that group, because my outer square, I could trust them. They could work through their work. I had working centers all around the classroom. So they knew when they got done, they could go to the writing center, the math center, the science center, and find some other activity. But the ones in the middle, they wouldn't do that. So I learned their names very quickly, and I learned mannerisms. And I knew if they weren't facing me. I noticed that if once they faced me, their voice was coming straight at me.
Right.
But if they turned, their voice was going to the left or to the right. And I scared this little boy. I said, Jamal, turn around and face me. He said, how you know I'm not facing you? I said, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to give away my secret.
So you were telling me that you used an accommodation because you were having trouble seeing the chalkboard.
Correct.
Can you tell our listeners about that?
Right. I could not see the chalkboard because regular chalkboards are colored dark green.
Correct.
So once I wrote on the board with a white piece of chalk, I couldn't see it. So my local teacher store sold chart paper. So any teachers that are listening or will be listening, chart paper is real long white sheet of paper. And you can either put it horizontally or vertically on a wall. So I taped maybe 3 or 4 sheets right next to each other on my chalkboard. And I used up a lot of Sharpie markers. And then I would, whatever I was doing, if I was working with sentences, I would write a sentence, but I would write it very large on the paper. So that way, if I walked away from the chalkboard, I could still see it. Or sometimes I would use an easel, and that would bring me closer to them. And then sometimes I would let them come up and write on it. Or they could come up to the chalkboard and write on the chalkboard using the marker. They love to do that. And I could get, responses from different ones, especially the ones who weren't paying attention. And that's the way I conducted my lessons. Plus I had an aide. So a lot of times he would write stuff on the chart paper for me.
Okay.
And then I would reinforce it with what I had on the easel. So we would tag team each other during the lesson. And that's how I taught my class.
Okay. So, again, talking to you before we started, you explained to me that there came a point in time in your teaching career where you had to end things. Can you talk to our viewers and listeners concerning that?
Well, I was, this was further into the school year, and the aide that I started out with, I had a male aide, and then the principal reassigned him to other duties, and she gave me another male aide. Then she reassigned him to other duties, and the person she gave me, we just didn't click. And
Okay.
I really wasn't helping me do the things that I really needed.
Right.
And I didn't hear you. Did you say something?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, so I just felt I wasn't getting the help that I needed.
Okay.
And things that were really important that had to be turned in on a timely manner, I wasn't turning things in. And that was really irritating the principal, because my attendance book and things weren't being turned in, and I needed her help. And I didn't know how to explain to her that I needed her help, because my vision was such that I couldn't see to do it. And I needed the other two aides. I didn't have to explain anything. They just, picked up
They
the
knew.
ball with it.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't feel comfortable with her being in the room. And I felt she just didn't, really service the children like I wanted her to. And I just couldn't take it anymore, So I had to make a decision. I didn't want to leave them. I didn't know who was going to be following after me. But I knew the materials and things that I had purchased with my own money for my classroom, whoever took over would not have to worry about supplies, because my class was well stocked. I made sure of it. I kept pencils, rulers, pen, ink, everything that they needed for their day. I had it. They didn't have to worry about anything. And so I just, took my personal effects, and then when I left that day, that was it. It was on a Wednesday in January. And I just, walked away, and I didn't worry about it. I just put it in God's hands.
Yes, I am hopeful for today. Take this music and use it. Let it take you away and be whole.